So why did the mysterious kaiju say before entering Kafka, "I found you"? I mean, it gave him an insane kaiju power-up, transforming our guy from Dadbod to Chadbod. And what if I told you that Kafka wasn't even the first one to wield the powers of Kaiju number 8? What's even crazier is that I know exactly how Kaiju number 8 will end, including how Kafka will die. And by the end of the video, I'll reveal everything. The biggest mystery can finally be unraveled as I reveal the 5 reasons behind the dragonfly kaiju choosing Kafka Hibino. Reason number 1 is that Kafka actually possessed an incredibly special body that you don't know about. And this reason is also why he was able to easily absorb the immense power from the mysterious bug kaiju. To prove my point, check this theory out that says that Kafka's low power output is what made it ideal for him to host Kaiju number 8's insane abilities. My bro, think about it yourself too. Our guy is a dud and clearly has no talent in terms of combat skills. Tell me I'm wrong. And according to this theory, he was chosen specifically because he was clearly a weak piece of crap. This means that the special body the mysterious kaiju needed was one that didn't possess extreme strength or any striking ability at all. In fact, it needed to be a really weak one, kind of like how Deku got his one for all quirk in My Hero Academia. Because of this special body, the mysterious kaiju could stuff itself down Kafka's throat and gave him monstrous kaiju powers that have an insane overpowered fortitude level of 9.8. Kafka's lack of fighting skills kind of worked as a silver lining because he was like an empty glass, with the potential to fully utilize this broken ability. But on top of that, I'm gonna explain why the mysterious kaiju requires a weaker human body. If you don't remember, Kafka wasn't able to unleash any powers of the Defense Force combat suit when he first tried it on, and according to Hoshina, it was the first time in history that they saw someone like Kafka who wasn't able to draw out any of his potential. They even thought of it as a measurement error. Dude's definitely a bummer, no error in that. And after months of hardcore training, Kafka barely managed to scratch 1% of the suit's power. So, unlike the numbered weapons, which are made from the strongest kaiju in history and usually require strong candidates from the Defense Force, how the heck did Kafka easily absorb an even more powerful force than the weaponized kaiju? These numbered weapons usually require someone who can potentially overcome the will of the kaiju that was somehow integrated in the suit and weapons. Take for example Isao Shinomiya and Gen Narumi. There's no doubt that they easily handled their numbered weapons powers since they're the strongest in the Defense Force. As for Kikuru, she was able to use number 4's suit because the kaiju probably saw Hikari Shinomiya, Kikuru's mommy, and the previous user of the suit in her. Although number 4 still considers Hikari superior to her daughter, that changed when Kikuru managed to surpass her mom by beating her own copy kaiju bootleg version number 15. Then there's also Leno and Kaiju number 6. When Ichikawa first tried the numbered weapon, even just wearing the gloves made from the kaiju, he was easily overwhelmed by number 6. However, with Leno's absolute resolve, he was able to tame the beast and eventually use the numbered weapon. Basically, all these guys fought a battle of willpower against the weaponized kaiju to harness their incredible powers. But for Kafka, it's the other way around, since the kaiju actually chose him in the first place. So the other reason the mini kaiju required a special body, or rather a weak body, was so that the person wouldn't be able to resist the kaiju and its powers. It's not that Kafka easily absorbed it, rather he couldn't fight it off from the start. Now, the thing is, we're not actually sure if Kafka would reject those broken abilities even if he knew about them beforehand. Yes, Kafka was surprised when he got the kaiju power up, but I'm sure he wouldn't even be against it and wouldn't fight back even if he had the strength to. He's like, give me those powers, I need them. What we do know though is that Kafka refused to be completely manipulated and controlled by the mini kaiju when number 8 went berserk during his battle against General Isao. Actually, in that fight, I found something you might have missed. At first, I thought the mini kaiju took over Kafka's body because he was up against the extremely powerful Isao. But here's the crazy thing. It was mentioned that when Isao is using his numbered weapon, he basically can be considered as a Dai Kaiju in the human form. And if you notice, the bug Kaiju's words were actually, "Kill Kaiju." Now that's some Amityville horror creepy stuff. But this means the mini kaiju only controlled Kafka because it is surprisingly hell-bent on killing its own kind and not the humans. It considered Isao as a kaiju when he used number 2's powerful suit and gauntlet. It's pretty crazy, no? But still, Kafka overcame the mini kaiju before he could accidentally kill Kikuru's father, and thankfully our boy was able to retain his humanity and access Kaiju number 8's powers. Now, we can actually draw two conclusions from this mini kaiju's attempt to take over Kafka's body. First is that since the mini kaiju considered Kafka so freaking weak, it may have thought Kafka can easily be controlled. But it turned out he had such strong willpower that Kafka eventually won a mental battle against the mini kaiju. The second conclusion is, maybe the bug kaiju didn't actually want to control Kafka. Instead, it simply wanted to give him incredible powers to eliminate other kaiju. It got me thinking, what if this goal of defeating all kaiju was actually the reason it chose Kafka? And so with that, here is reason number 2. It's also possible that Kafka was chosen because of his hero attitude that is highly comparable to that of the original user of the kaiju power, the mysterious Phantom Samurai. Kafka was picked because of his strong sense of responsibility and his knack for putting others before himself. Bro, you heard it right. Someone else actually wielded Kaiju number 8's insane abilities even before our man. You see, when Vice Captain Hoshina took Kafka to the Ryune shrine, Kafka saw a ghost of a mysterious samurai as they were leaving. Because Hoshina mentioned that this sacred place is where people who died slaying kaiju are honored and remembered. And the shrine was actually the place where the biggest bloodshed battle occurred. And what if I told you that there are two theories that say Kafka was actually connected to that ghost samurai? The first theory suggests that the samurai previously held the powers of Kaiju number 8, and just like Kikuru, Kafka was able to see the ghost of the previous user. When Kikuru wore her numbered weapon suit, she saw the ghost of her mommy, kinda like a memory saved in number 4's suit. So the spooky samurai that Kafka saw could also likely be a memory from the bug kaiju. This means that the mysterious bug kaiju had existed since the Edo period, and it's been helping humans fight kaiju through generations. Still, the question is, why was Kafka chosen as the successor? Well, ever since he was a kid, his dream had always been to eliminate kaiju and save others. In chapter 109, Kafka even said that his goal was to have an unleashed combat power of 99% and be a powerful swordsman and gunner. But let's be real, a lot of people have that kind of drive, right? Especially in the defense force. So what makes Kafka stand out? I'm thinking, maybe it's because of his heroic stunts, always choosing to save others before himself. Just like when he went Iron Man Avenger mode and saved the whole Tachikawa base from a massive Yoju bomb. Bro didn't hesitate to use his insane power to punch the bomb far into the sky, saving not just the base, but basically everyone else, even if it meant exposing his secret. Now I'm also thinking, could it be possible that the samurai was also put in a tight situation like this in the past? I mean, Vice Captain Hoshina even mentioned that back in the day, like during the Meireki era, humans had to fight powerful kaiju in a much more primitive manner compared to the modern weapons they use now. Kafka also noted that a Dai kaiju in 1657 took part in a major cataclysm so destructive that it was featured in textbooks. If we look at the appearance of the Phantom Samurai and the kaiju slayers in that cataclysm, we can actually see that the original user might have lived during those times. And it's likely possible that the samurai took part in eliminating the massive Dai kaiju. Given the kaiju's immense power and the destruction it might have caused, the mysterious samurai had no choice but to use his abilities and expose himself to ultimately defeat the beast. Just like Kafka, who turned himself in, so that he won't be considered a threat and still be treated as a human. The samurai probably surrendered as well. But since powerful kaiju were feared, especially during those olden times, and using them as weapons was not yet discovered, he was likely executed. That's why the bug kaiju waited for someone who could potentially use the powers of number 8 to save humanity, just like its old master did. Now, The second theory says that Kafka was actually a reincarnation and a direct descendant of the samurai. And the dragonfly kaiju was so loyal to its previous master that it waited for so long in search of Kafka. But before giving him the powers, the kaiju must have observed Kafka throughout his life and waited until our guy was ready for a much bigger role. And when Kafka saved Leno from the spider Yoju, the mini kaiju probably said, "It's time. The one is ready." If these theories are already convincing for you, you might want to hear an even crazier one. Like reason number 3, which suggests that the mini kaiju was actually created by number 9 to study humans. But surprisingly, it backfired when it developed human feelings.
Kafka.
And it went rogue in search of someone exceptional, a human deserving of insane kaiju powers that could potentially annihilate even its own creator. In chapter 107, kaiju number 9 was revealed to be cooking something big for quite some time. This mofo even made a monologue while fighting Kafka. Like, he won't stop yapping about everything there is to know about humans. Number 9 revealed that he has been analyzing and understanding humans so that he can reach an ultimate goal. Like, it tried to explore the capacity of humans when it sent the prototype, Kaiju number 10, to test their strength. And after that, number 9 made an even stronger version in Kaiju number 12. Number 9 even absorbs and devours humans for knowledge. Just like when it took Issao's body and used the general's memory to create the identified kaiju in the induced cataclysm. And when we first saw him in chapter 13, number 9 sort of analyzes the knowledge of humans and applies it on kaiju when he modified the body of the fungal type Yoju. All of these things about studying human behavior and culture is all to be able to dominate and annihilate all humans in order to create a world of kaiju that he ultimately dreams of. And to achieve this, number 9 initially created the Dragonfly Kaiju with the purpose of learning everything about humans. But understanding the complex world of humans is no easy task. I mean, bro, I don't even understand how a woman's brain works. I mean, I was just dating this chick, and she was just creating complications. And not for me, just for herself. I said, okay. Anyways, because it's not easy, that's why the mini kaiju probably had an information overload in its mission. Aside from that, it might have absorbed not just all the knowledge, but also the emotions of humans.
Kafka.
However, instead of returning to number 9 to report all these things, it went rogue and slowly sided with humans. What's even crazier is, this is not actually the first time that a kaiju went rogue when it learned about human nature. Take for example Kaiju number 10. At first, it was sent to defeat the strongest soldier and destroy Tachikawa base. And when it fought against Hoshina, number 10 actually enjoyed it. After it was defeated, it wanted to fight alongside Hoshina and was turned into the first living numbered weapon. So it's not too far-fetched to think that the Dragonfly Kaiju might have done the same thing before. But the question is, how did it end up choosing Kafka then? In Hoshina's crazy case, number 10 loves fighting, and it paired with Hoshina because the vice captain's pretty damn strong. As for the Dragonfly Kaiju, it has a knack for learning and knowledge. I guess it went looking for someone just like itself, and that's the reason it picked Kafka. His exceptional knowledge about kaiju in all the years that he's been working in the cleanup department actually paid off. Additionally, the mini kaiju was not just simply looking for a smart-ass human. It probably searched for someone who can understand how the kaiju's body works, because it will be humanity's best weapon to defeat kaiju. So to be able to fully use the powers to its max potential, the user must have great knowledge on kaiju. Also on top of that, the user of the bug kaiju will turn into a complete kaiju himself. I guess that the mini kaiju also considered that the knowledge of kaiju that's been accumulated will help Kafka control his own body better than anyone else. You see, when Kafka was brought to the Defense Force HQ, Isao confirmed that Kafka was definitely no longer human because he already had a core instead of a human heart. Now here's another interesting thing. What if the Defense Force got it totally wrong about his heart? Since Kafka's condition was actually the first ever recorded case in history, what if having a kaiju core in a human body leads us to an even crazier possibility? This brings us to reason number 4. Kafka is not a kaiju, and no, he's also not human, but a hybrid. And this is actually another possible reason for Kafka's 0% unleashed power. And if you're thinking that he could be a result of a scientific experiment, kind of like X-Men Wolverine style, no. Because if that's the case, then the Defense Force could have created another one like him in the first place. And if they have the power to do it, then might as well create an army, right? Kind of like the ruthless Germa 66 army. Plus, all the members of the Defense Force were actually surprised when they learned that Kaiju number 9 can morph into a human. When they discovered Kafka's true identity, they even wanted to kill him right away and just turn him into a numbered weapon. So let's rule out the possibility of Kafka being a sort of a failed science experiment. Now, what if I told you that we're left with a possibility that, like Kaiju number 9, one of Kafka's parents, probably his dad, could have been a kaiju that can also morph into a human? Sort of like Avatar's Jake Sully and Natri. A bit gross, since Jake uses an avatar, but Kafka's parent, on the other hand, was in reality a kaiju himself. The manga hasn't shown us whether two kaijus can have alien-like romance. I mean, like giving birth to another kaiju, we've only seen number 9 creating kaiju all by himself. But there is a chance that there are others like Kafka and number 9 who can transform into humans, since we don't exactly know the origins of these powerful beasts. After Kafka's dad has experienced being a human, he eventually chose to live as one, and started his icky out of this world family. That's why Kafka was actually a hybrid human with a kaiju core to begin with. And the mini kaiju was specifically looking for him because with his body he can control the insane powers of number 8. Now what's interesting is, being a hybrid could also be the reason why Kafka has a weaker body. Like, I mean, my guy's no gym rat by any measure, but he used to work an exhausting job in the cleanup department. So he should be somewhat fit, right? Even though during the selection exam, Kafka almost failed the fitness test. I mean, it's not like he's over 30 and too old for that. LeBron's gonna clap back for this.
LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James.
So, I've been thinking though, in terms of Kafka's future, could it be possible that his fragile body cannot actually handle the physical stress of having a kaiju core? Maybe his human body, like his muscles and need for oxygen and all those things about science, cannot actually keep up with the needs of his kaiju core. And that makes him easily tired and all when it comes to physical activities. What's even crazier is, this is the reason why Kafka got a 0% unleashed power. First, you have to understand that to be able to release the suit's potential, the user must create a link with the bioweapon, which is actually made from kaiju cells and muscle fibers. And since Kafka is already a hybrid, he doesn't need to link with the suit itself. Or can't. Because the suit didn't recognize Kafka since he's not totally human.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
If you're wondering how he still managed to get that 1%, it's probably because he wasn't aware of him being a hybrid at first. And as he trains and improves, he's slowly harnessing his kaiju powers. Even though Kafka's body is physically weak, the kaiju core that he has makes him fully compatible with an immense power like number 8's. And it might just be the reason why the mini kaiju was looking for him in the first place. I actually came up with this theory because if you think about it, we don't actually have anything about Kafka's parents or even any relatives at all. The only time we have heard of them was in chapter 2, where a young Kafka asked Mina to not rat out his dreams to his mom or auntie. And if we're already considering Kafka's past and his parents, it's also possible that the disaster in their hometown killed Kafka's parents. That is why his desire to join the Defense Force was strengthened. That brings us to reason number 5, which says the flying kaiju was actually from the battle where Kafka's parents died. You see, after that incident, Kafka and Mina became dedicated to wiping out all kaiju together. But sadly, Mina was left alone in the Defense Force when Kafka failed to pass the exams.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
You stupid.
After trying multiple times, he lost hope and settled in the cleanup department. So all his life, Kafka wanted to fulfill his promise to fight alongside Mina and join the Defense Force. Though he hadn't been successful, he even reached a point where he was willing to sacrifice his life for someone else. Someone else whose dream it was to also join the Defense Force, Leno Ichikawa. And for this selfless reason, the mysterious kaiju found the one. The one who deserves an insane kaiju power to ultimately defeat all kaiju, so he can succeed in reaching his lifelong dream. Since the mini kaiju's goal is likely to kill every kaiju, and it saw that Kafka had the same determination, it gave Kafka the powers to defeat them. Also, the Dragonfly Kaiju knew that Kafka would always choose to save others before himself, like he did when he saved Leno, and so Kafka would not be a threat to humanity. If that's the case, what do you think will happen to Kafka and the mysterious bug kaiju? Let's say after they complete their ultimate goals. Since his dream was to fight alongside Mina, he has actually started to fulfill that in chapter 109. The only thing left is to eliminate all kaiju. That won't be easy because Kaiju number 9 upped his game even more by transforming into 4 arms. This mofo merged with number 2's powers in the battle against Kafka and Mina. Number 9 even has 2 heads, right? Like, that's crazy. Regardless, a Kafka-Mina combo makes perfect sense, as the heroes who will finally defeat number 9 and ultimately wipe out all kaiju. But after this battle, wouldn't that mean Kafka will be the only kaiju left, right? So what's gonna happen with our guy? What if I told you that the author himself, Naoya Matsumoto, has been hinting at Kafka's death since the very beginning? Because bro, you're not gonna believe this. Matsumoto actually used a real book and its author as a reference to write this manga. For starters, Kafka Hibino was named after the author, Franz Kafka. Coincidence? I think not. Because Franz actually wrote a book, The Metamorphosis, which is kinda like Hibino's story. The main character, Gregor Samsa, woke up one day to find that he had transformed into an insect. Ring any bells? Almost exactly like how Kafka turned into a kaiju from an insect, like kaiju. So what if Matsumoto low-key followed Samsa's story for Kafka? And by the way, guess what happened to the MC at the end of that story? Greg's creepy transformation caused his family and everyone around him to reject and completely abandon him. And he died from
emotional damage.
Well, I'm not saying that Kafka will have a dark ending like Greg, but I'm thinking that it would make sense that Kafka will die after he has achieved all his goals. Kinda like an Eren Yeager sort of plot. Unless the Defense Force finds a way to reverse his kaijufication. If you remember, it was mentioned that if Kafka keeps transforming and using his powers, it's only a matter of time before he completely turns into a kaiju and can never return to his human form. Still, I want to believe a happy ending is possible for our guy, and he can return to being human with our girl next door, the shorty, Mina. That is possible only if the Defense Force can gain knowledge of kaiju anatomy and turn Kafka into a human again. The key factor will be understanding all types of kaiju because, actually, Kafka's Daikaiju form is just one of the 38 known kaiju.